Fear of growing up sounds vague, but the real, research-backed worry inside it is concrete. Puberty. If you're parenting a preteen right now, I bet you've totally felt that vague, looming anxiety about them just getting older. But when we actually look at the peer-reviewed literature, that generalized fear pretty much vanishes. What takes its place is something way more specific, physical, and absolutely measurable. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're demystifying tween anxiety. Look, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed navigating these chaotic years, you are for sure not alone. We're going to cut through all those childhood myths and dive straight into the clear, actionable research on puberty worries and body image anxiety in preteens. By the end of our time together, you'll know exactly what's going on in your kid's mind and body. And more importantly, you'll know how to help them handle it. Let's get into it.
All right, so here's our roadmap for today. 1. The real growing up fear. 2. The puberty timing trap. 3. Emotion regulation and body image. 4. Your parent action guide. And 5. When to seek help. Let's just jump right into section 1, the real growing up fear. What's really fascinating here is how the science shifts our focus from this fuzzy psychological concept to a very concrete physical reality. Research shows we really shouldn't be hunting for some generalized fear of growing up. Instead, we need to be looking at internalizing symptoms. Basically, that means clinical anxiety and low mood that pop up directly as a result of puberty and bodily changes. Studies actually confirm that the notorious spike in anxiety around this age, it's tied directly to pubertal development itself. It's this massive inflection point where physical changes literally trigger internal emotional struggles.
Okay, moving on to section 2, the puberty timing trap.
We all kind of assume that when kids hit certain ages like 11, 12, or 13, they just naturally get more anxious or moody, right? It's like we think those birthday candles come with a warning label. But research proves it's actually not chronological age driving this distress. It's pubertal development. That spike in anxiety coincides precisely with a physical transition of puberty. So the trigger isn't the calendar on the wall, it's biology. And this brilliantly highlights a core conflict, especially for one specific group. Landmark research points to a massive vulnerability for early maturing girls. And why are they at such a high risk? Well, it's because their bodies are totally outpacing their emotional and social readiness. Just imagine it, looking like an older teenager on the outside, but internally, you're still working with the emotional toolkit of a 9-year-old. The external world suddenly starts treating you differently, way before your internal world has matured enough to actually handle it. So the real-world fallout of this timing trap is pretty severe. Early maturing girls face a significantly elevated risk for depression, heightened anxiety, and increased body dissatisfaction. Think about it. They're developing ahead of their peers, which can feel incredibly isolating. Plus, that early physical development often draws unwanted older peer and adult-type attention. They're suddenly forced to navigate scenarios they just do not have the social or emotional framework for yet. While the patterns for boys are a bit different, for early maturing girls, the risk is exceptionally clear. All right, that brings us to section 3, emotion regulation and body image. So you gotta wonder, why exactly does this cause so much distress? It's a question pretty much every parent asks. Why can't a kid just grow taller or develop physically without it totally shaking their sense of self? Well, the answer lies in how they view their new body and, crucially, how they cope with the intense feelings that new body generates. Some really fascinating recent research mapped out a direct, measurable pathway for this distress. Think of it kind of like a domino effect. The trigger is pubertal timing. The immediate effect of that trigger, body dissatisfaction. And the ultimate result is poor self-image and emotional distress. So body image isn't just some side issue here. It's literally the central pathway from physical change straight to clinical anxiety and low mood in tweens. When their own body feels foreign or out of control, their self-image just plummets. But here is where we find a lot of hope. Scientists have actually mapped out the exact mechanism behind this distress, and it reveals a huge opportunity for us as parents. Step 1 is the pubertal change. Step 2 is maladaptive regulation, specifically something called rumination, which is when you just obsessively overthink negative feelings. Together, those lead to step 3, anxiety and depression. But look closely at step 2. How a child regulates their emotions is a totally modifiable lever. If they use a maladaptive coping style, they can spiral. But if we can help them change how they cope, we can actually change the entire outcome. It's a total game changer. Which is exactly why we're moving right into Section 4, your Parent Action Guide.
Because coping styles are absolutely teachable, you have immense power to protect your child here. Here are some proactive, research-backed steps you can take right now. First up, prepare them early, and do it matter-of-factly so they aren't blindsided. Second, protect their body image by praising what their body can do, its function and effort over how it looks. Third, validate those feelings. Say things like, "It totally makes sense this feels weird right now. Let's figure out what helps." Fourth, teach them active emotion regulation skills like slow breathing or problem solving to swap out that harmful rumination. Fifth, if you've got an early mature, offer extra reassurance and supervise them a bit more closely around older peers. And finally, curate their media. Counter all that appearance comparison stuff by talking openly about unrealistic images and social media filters.
Now, just as important are the things we want to steer clear of to keep things shame-free. Definitely don't tease them about their bodily changes, ever. Don't make puberty a secret or act like it's something embarrassing to talk about. Also, try really hard to avoid commenting on diets or criticizing your own weight in front of them. Kids absolutely internalize how you treat your own body. And lastly, let's avoid labeling foods as good or bad. We want to foster a totally neutral, functional, and accepting vibe around bodies and nourishment during these super self-conscious years.
Okay, let's wrap up with our final section, when to seek help. Now, we want to keep a strictly non-diagnostic stance at home, but you definitely need to know the professional red flags. If you're seeing a persistent low mood that just won't lift, intense body image distress that totally consumes their thoughts, any signs at all of disordered eating, or anxiety that actively gets in the way of their daily life, like refusing to go to school or ditching activities they used to love, it is time to seek a professional. A good therapist can step in with targeted emotional regulation tools that are highly effective.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this data? Well, the research shows us that early puberty definitely brings population-level risks, but it is absolutely not destiny. Supportive, shame-free conversations plus building active coping skills equals protection. You are the buffer. By normalizing these physical changes and teaching them how to process those heavy emotions, you can safely guide them right through the puberty timing trap.
Navigating the tween years is undoubtedly challenging, for sure, but armed with the right knowledge, you can absolutely replace that vague fear of growing up with concrete, actionable support. So ask yourself, how are you going to shift the conversation about body changes with your tween today? Fear Me Not helps kids conquer fears through science-backed play. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we keep breaking down the research that matters most to you.